Monitoring this, again, it's the continuous feedback, the surveys, the comments we get back, the emails. I did have some teachers today. A principal told me that the teachers were very thankful that we handled this the way we did, because they have felt connected to their students when they were afraid they wouldn't be. They were glad that they were included in the groups, and everybody has a voice and everybody has a part of designing the choice boards, designing the assignments at the secondary. And they said, we feel like we still are valuable to our students because we are really working on what we're putting out to them. And they felt really good about that. Administrators have been meeting consistently with their faculty. They are working with the instructional coaches. They have grade level meetings. They have building meetings all through Zoom or Google Hangout. So they are staying in constant contact with their staff. Okay, that is a quick, very quick tour through the waiver. Do you have any questions on the waiver itself?
I have a question on graduation.
Okay.
As the board, we can waive the extra 3 credits that we require for graduation and just go with the 21 hours that the state requires, correct?
Yes.
Not that I want to do that, but I just wanted to let all the board members know that we could do that if we had anybody that was close and could move it back so they could graduate.
Jason, this is Brad. One of the things we talked about was that that is something that Mark has in his back pocket to be able to bring to you guys to do that. And so if he doesn't need that for any students, he's not planning on doing that. But if he feels like there is a case where that is necessary, he's certainly going to bring that to you before graduation time.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right. Another item I want to share with you then is the actual continuous learning plan for the elementary. The first few pages of this are literally just pasted from the waiver. So I'm going to go down. This is literally what was just in there, to what the elementary continuous learning plan actually is. And we talked about it a couple weeks ago when we had that other meeting. This is basically it again, that the lead teachers in each grade level, and we are including any student teachers in this so they can continue with their program. We want to make sure they can still get their hours. So student teachers are involved in this. They work with their instructional coach. They set up weekly meetings. I know they had them today. And they start looking at what they had identified as the standards that need to be covered this week. And then they start refining as a group. This lead teacher goes back to the rest of her grade level across, the district, and they all work together. And they start designing week by week, day by day, multi-level differentiated activities with the idea that they should be accessible at home. They shouldn't be something that is so hard for parents to do that they can't do it. We want it to be accessible. We want it to be as stress-free as it possibly can be, and yet meet the learning goals. So they work on these choice boards, and the recommended times you see there, those come from the state. So we are cognizant of those and try to abide by them. And then the grade level team leaders from each building, we have a shared Google Doc on a shared drive that they go in and start populating the information. Then the instructional coach and the principal go and they sit down and they go through the board and make sure that it's well written. They make sure that it's rigorous enough, that it meets the standards. They clean it all up. And then my administrative assistant, Vicki, happens to have a graphic design company. And so she then transfers their information from the Google Doc onto the boards that you see that are on our district website. She puts them into the format with the colors and paginates them and makes them all look nice. And then those are printed in-house here. And those are delivered on Monday with meals. And then they're also posted on our website. So they are there if anybody needs them, or they can come pick up a paper copy. They're both exactly the same thing. Any PDFs they need are printed and put into the packet. Starting this week, we will be putting links in, live links, which we had not had before. We were slow in putting this in methodically. But live links will appear in next week's boards, and then tech enhanced activities will be available starting next week, like visits to the Louvre, virtual museums or zoos, or things like that they can go in, and it'll be tied to the standard for that day for that content area. And then there are also challenges built in also. We try to differentiate different levels for the students so that we can meet their needs at whatever level they're learning at right now. And then again, families contact the teachers at all times if they have questions on that. They're keeping this regular school hours. Social emotional learning, again, integrated each time. So that's in a nutshell how the elementary is setting up. And then secondary is a little bit different. Again, this is just a repeat from what was on the communication. What our middle schools have done, they have worked together and have come up with wonderful links. Let me see if this will go live here. Yep. So they post weekly links. So this was the first one that populate on here, but they have each day what they need to do. They have the resources posted on here. They have the weekly agenda for them to follow. The library is even posted on here with some suggestion for books. They have their electives posted. And then the link in here for this current week has a bunch of information from the counselor. This was just the very first week. But the secondary for the middle school, wonderful, wonderful job they've put on there. A lot of thought and care has gone into that. So every time you can go and you can get a weekly agenda. These are emailed to the families with a note from the principal each week. They have gone to a semi-block schedule. So every other day with assignments due. And then Friday, they've got their advisory meeting, have a virtual meeting, so that they are checking in face-to-face with their advisory students. Miss Taylor, I just pasted the one from Woodland Spring in here. She has a wonderful set of information going out each week. She's got videos, she's got hotline numbers, she's got suggestions. Here's videos about how to talk to your kids about it. General questions on our website. So both of the schools have made a big effort to put a lot of social emotional support in there for the middle school kids. High school is very, very similar on a semi-block schedule. And the teachers are teaching via Google Classroom, which on both middle school and high school level, our students are very familiar with because they've been using it all year. So that is not a lot of difference for them right now on that learning. It's just different because they're not face-to-face. And then Friday, they too are having advisory meetings for them to talk to their students. And both levels, middle and high, if somebody does not have internet access, they create packets by that student's schedule, and they're keeping Google folders that the teachers put the assignments in. They pull it out in the office, they make the copies, they make a packet for them, they put the student's name on it, and they personalize it and hand it to them when they come to get meals. And they come pick up their personalized packet of learning built on their schedule. And again, they've got their contact hours, and the teachers said the students have been calling. They've had great contact with them and feel like, for as unprecedented as this is right now, they're feeling pretty good about it. So I'll stand for any questions.
I have just a couple of questions, Karen. Thank
Okay.
you, first of all, for everybody. This is a lot of hard work. I really appreciate you and all of your teams. The elementary school, is the plan to have the choice boards up by Friday?
The choice boards, as soon as we get them done, she posts them up. I think this week she got them up Saturday. Usually they are changed on Monday morning, but if we kind of get into the rhythm of this and we can get it faster, then we will.
Sure. No, and I know that'll take a little time. I'm just concerned about the working parents that aren't with their kids on Mondays, and if they haven't had a chance to get that to whoever is helping watch their kids.
Good idea. Good point. Yeah, I think as we kind of get in the swing of this and we kind of get better at doing it, I think we can do it faster.
Okay. And then second question and maybe this is a Misty question too, but is there any way we could post the links to the weekly email? I know the elementary choice boards are on the USD230 website, but I, just speaking from a working parent with multiple buildings and lots of email, if I had one place I could go to find that week's information. I've had a couple people ask me about that too. I don't know if we could post like the Woodland Spring and the Spring Hill Middle Schools.
Oh, sure.
Just right on that same page that has the FAQs for parents underneath.
Absolutely. Good idea.
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
We can do that.
Okay. I think that was all right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? All right. I will let Mrs. Jados go.
Okay, thank you. Give me just a second. I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully I'll be as smooth as Karen was when she did that. No, I'm not going to give any promises here. So, all right. Looking at this from the special education perspective, I'm going to talk a little bit about the special education services during the long-term school closure, and then also some additional guidance that our special services department has provided. One of the big ideas with this is, and we really wanted to encompass, children are the priority, and right now change is the reality, and collaboration is the strategy to accomplish this. Some background information, kind of a little bit of our process with our timeline. We did a lot of work looking at information from the national, the state, the local levels, readings, attended various webinars, virtual meetings, spent quite a bit of time doing that. Looked at the directors here in Johnson County, how we were approaching this, how our districts were approaching the continuous learning plan, and then how SPED would approach that within that. We created our guidance, our specialized continuous learning plan, which I'll talk about in a little bit, the supporting documents. We had vetted that through our school psychologists, the HR department, did virtual professional development with administrators, school psychologists on the plan, and then provide virtual professional development for each building level SPED team, which included the school psychologist, the building principal, special education teachers, and therapists. So that was each building had, and that was about 45 minutes to an hour with each building that we spent kind of going through that. Some important points that we talked about: when a district has extended school closures, the district remains responsible to FAPE, free appropriate public education for students with IEPs. That was, that's probably the biggest underlying issue for us. And so these continuous learning plans are what becomes our general education during that time. So as we looked at this issue, that's how we kind of addressed that. One of the guidance that we'd shared was, for all of our groups, it wasn't an option to deviate from our outline plan, because any of those variations really had a potential for some legal ramifications. We really focused on school psychologists and building principals working hand in hand. Our case managers, or our special education teachers, with the respective therapists, are responsible for reviewing how the closure impacted the delivery of special education and the related services to students with IEPs on a case-by-case basis. They were being mindful of the students' needs and how they could be met with that current district continuous learning plan, or with supports and what that might look like. During this time for us, like I said, our general education becomes that district continuous learning plan. So the special education maybe that's on the IEPs, that looks just a little bit different. One of the pieces with this is we couldn't do any blanket things saying such all special education students will do this or that. So that created, those case managers had to look at every student that they served. What came of this is then we have this specialized continuous learning plan. This is just kind of a screenshot, a little bit of that there. One of these was completed by the case managers for each special education student. They went through, found that information, looked through that, kind of started looking at, and this is kind of a hand-in-hand approach. The continuous learning plan for the district had to be made before we could really begin creating our specialized continuous learning plans for our special education students. Our overall goal is the maintenance of skills and the access to the benefit of the general education curriculum. But our most important goal was parent contact and communication. As SPED teachers or case managers started looking at their students, they kind of looked back at their IEPs, they looked at the progress they'd made, kind of started thinking what kind of supports would they need to be able to access the continuous learning plan. The most important aspect was making contact with the parents, with the families, what supports were needed, how that kind of looked for them. Would they be accessing the district continuous learning plan? What did they need to help their students to be successful? And what kinds of things needed to go on to help them continue to maintain their skills? Once those case managers and teachers had that, they created a plan, again, working hand in hand with those parents. They communicated that with parents, and then school psychs worked to create any of the necessary SPED paperwork that needed to go with that plan. And kind of changing course here. Now, that's kind of that interim time. During this time, our IEPs still continue. And what goes on is the specialized continuous learning plan goes on during this interim time. We don't go back and modify and change our regular IEPs. Those will continue on, and those pick up right when we come back to school. We are still responsible during this time for our annual IEP meetings, for evaluations, and we still are required to meet the timelines that accompany those special education meetings and documents for each student. Right now, we look at that. The guidance was given, meetings are held virtually or by phone. DocuSign software was implemented by the technology department to allow those IEP team members to sign those documents electronically, which a huge shout out to Phil Elliott and the tech department for the fast turnaround on helping us get that software to support us at this time. Very much appreciated. Moving on, some other things that kind of went with that. We had some other activities that occurred. Virtual meetings occurred with each of the following groups. Social workers, we did virtual meeting with them. Guidances provide ESOL teachers. We did Insight Virtual School, speech and language pathologists, life skills teachers, gifted teachers, physical therapists, and occupational therapists. What came about is many of those groups also created some sort of extras document that they had created to share with parents or families of special education students. So they kind of looked at some tech and non-tech options to support those families as well. Additional documents and guidance that was created by our special services department. We created paraprofessional guidance. We created 504 plan guidance, and then also communication logs, tracking logs, the ESOL guidance, communication logs, tracking logs, and then social worker communication logs and tracking logs. And right now we're still in the process of finishing up our social worker guidance for that. So, and just kind of right back where we started, children are the priority, change is the reality, and collaboration was the strategy with that. So kind of going through that kind of quickly and briefly. Any questions, anything that I can kind of help with understanding with that?
No, thank you.
Just kind of curious, how many special education students are there in the district that you had to do those individualized plans for?
Roughly, I believe, and my number is not in front of me at this moment, I want to say almost 600.
Oh. Oh.
And this is kind of a SPED part.
Oh, Allie, I'm sorry, you're kind of cutting out.
Question, possibly part what we were talking about with Karen. Is that better?
Yeah,
It's
that's
probably
better.
our internet. I know the middle. So what we were just talking about on the main FAQs for parents to have just one place to look. I know that we're posting the choice boards for elementary, and we can get the middle school posted. Is there? I don't think I've seen a weekly email go out from the high school, and I'm assuming that that's probably because they're high school students. But when I think of our SPED students and parents that are at home helping them, that would be helpful as well. If there's a communication posted from the high school, I think it would really help the SPED parents and students to have one place to look at it too.
That's something we can try, and I think we can work, Dr. Brock and I can talk about that and work on that together. I know they have their individual case managers are contacting them. Some of them daily, some of them weekly, just kind of depends. So, but we can look at what that could look like for them.
Sure. 600 is a lot. Thank you.
So with that, Mr. Updike, we are asking the board to approve our waiver. And within that waiver is the continuous learning plan for the state of Kansas.
Okay, any other questions or comments on the on the waiver application packet? This is an action item.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the waiver in continuous learning plan waiver required by the state.
I second.
This is
Jason and
Wimble.
Ally.
Yes.
It's moved and seconded to approve the waiver of continuous learning plan that's required by the state. Any final questions or comments? Katie, please collect a vote.
I'll start the vote with Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Wimble,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
approved.
Very good. Thank you. Let's move on to our second action item for the evening, and that's our memorandum of understanding with Spring Hill Education Association. Dr. Burke.
Yeah, I'm actually going to turn this over to Brad Wilson and let him kind of walk you through this. Go ahead, Brad.
Thank you. Phil, would you mind clicking on that? Thank you so much. This is just a memorandum of understanding. It's fairly simple. It's if I were going to summarize this, it's to say that both parties, the union as well as the Board of Education, it understands that this is different than we've ever done it before, and that we are going to work together to do our best to make sure that learning happens for kids to the best of our ability. Where areas fit under the old negotiated agreement or the current negotiated agreement, we'll abide by that. And in areas where it doesn't, then we will abide by the continuous learning plan to really do what's best for our kids. And one thing I cannot emphasize enough is how important having an education association and a president of an education association like Joanne, who is willing to work with us to always do what's best for kids. Sometimes in some districts across the state, and we've never had it here to my knowledge, but that sometimes it's looking out for the teachers in an odd situation instead of just looking out for the kids. And our education association makes sure they work hard for their teachers, but never, never, never at any detriment to our students. And so I can't appreciate that enough. Anyway, so this is just a simple memorandum of understanding. I actually meet with Joanne on Thursday. We're going to go through she's actually done it once, but we're going to go through the negotiated agreement together and try to find and talk about the areas that really don't fit in the rest of this school year's learning plan, and just have conversations and make sure that we're on the same page to how we're going to handle things that would fall under a section typically, but now that section's not working very well for it. And so it's really about us working together and making sure we're on the same page with agreeing to things.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. The one thing I would echo, Mrs. Whitman has set in on multiple meetings through Zoom and has, I cannot sing her praises enough, how many times that she's brought up things for us to be thinking about and to consider and to make adjustments to. So certainly appreciate her and the time that she spent in helping us put this plan together. The continuous learning plan that you saw previously but also this memorandum of understanding to make sure that we're moving forward and meeting the needs of our students and also keeping the needs of our educational association members in mind as well. So certainly appreciate that. And with that, we ask the board to approve this memorandum of understanding with the Spring Hill Education Association.
So you've sat with Joanne, walked through this, and basically this is an agreement that's saying, you know what, we might have to be creative in how we address some of the issues that we have.
Yeah.
And this is just putting that into, are there signatures that go on this thing or not?
Yeah, there should be signatures at the bottom. Yeah, this
Okay.
There is.
memorandum of understanding is very simply to say, yes, we, the Board of Education, agree to work with the Spring Hill Education Association. Spring Hill Education Association agrees to work with the district, the Board of Education, on any situations that may not fall under the current negotiated agreement. Part of that is on Thursday, she and I will go through and try to be proactive about things that don't fit very well between the continuous learning plan and negotiated agreement, and try to get ahead of anything that comes up. Her goal is to make sure that there's no grievances filed during this time on anything that would be due to the fact that we're in a different situation than what we normally function under. But yes,
Yeah,
we should be able to get that to you with signatures.
Yeah, there is a signature page up underneath this, but just for presentation purposes, we cut it up so that you would be able to see the majority of it.
And this is just for the remainder of this school year, and approved changes are just through June. So looking forward, it's just for the school year, correct?
Right.
Yes. Right now we have, and Dr. Brooke will talk about on the next item, but we have a 2-year agreement. And in that 2-year agreement goes for this current school year and next school year. And this memorandum of understanding is really only for the rest of this school year. Now, if this continued into next school year, we'd probably have to write up a new memorandum of understanding for that situation, which, as we know, could happen, but hopefully not.
Yeah, Mrs. Speedling, you're correct. If you look at the very bottom of the memorandum, it says any approved changes shall expire on June 30th, 2020.
But we would need a new memorandum before that if, God forbid, this continues into next school year.
Correct.
That would be correct.
This is Eric Boyle. I would move that the board approve the memorandum of understanding with Spring Hill Education Association to address issues pertaining to COVID-19.
Second, Sharon Mitchell.
Moved and seconded to approve the memorandum of understanding with Spring Hill Education Association for issues pertaining to the COVID-19. Any final questions or comments on the memorandum?
I'm so grateful that the board and our administration had the foresight to start the whole one-to-one program that put us in a position to deal with this the way we've been able to. But even more so, and in, I guess, conjunction with this motion, I'm so glad we have a staff, a faculty that has been willing and able to embrace the technology. And there are a lot of districts that are not in the position we are in today. So thank goodness we've got all the right people and the right technology and the right director of technology and all those things that have made this something we can cope with. So.
Agreed. Any other comments or questions? Katie, please collect a vote.
Mr. Wimble,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
approved.
Very good. Thank you. Moving on to our discussion item, which is negotiations. Dr. Burke.
Yeah, this is one of those things that, according to the state statute, we have to exchange letters with the association every year. as Brad just spoke to you, we have a 2-year agreement with our Spring Hill Education Association. And so even with that, you still have to exchange letters. And so the school district exchanged a letter, the Education Association exchanged a letter. Both of those letters basically notice the fact that we are having a 2-year agreement and that we plan to move forward with it. We both feel very good about that agreement. So more than anything, this is just to share with you that there is one of those cross the T's and dot the I's, and that is the exchange of the notice letters. And so we're just putting on the record that those letters have been exchanged, but at the same time, we're still moving forward with their 2-year contract.
Dr. Burke, can you ask Greg Goheen to send me that link again so I can do the negotiations training? I haven't seen anything, so it slipped my mind recently.
We will absolutely get that to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think I have that, Jason, so I'll try to get that to you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
With that, that's just more of a FYI. There are certain things that is in state statute, and one of the requirements is the exchange of notice letters. And I just wanted the board to know that we exchange letters. They're both there. Both of them basically say that we have a 2-year contract and we're happy with the contract. So there's really no need to do anything with that.
Okay, we're fortunate to to have a 2-year agreement from last year. Any other comments, questions about about negotiations?
Many thanks to the negotiators that did the 2-year contract.
Yeah, and
we'll say it's Brad's idea or Wayne's idea.
Yeah,
we're just there. We're bobbleheads at that point.
So
I got to tell you, we have a great group of teachers. We have a set amount of money from the state, and to be able to give them security, knowing what their pay raise is going to be for next year, and then continuing to work with the association on their concerns, it's been a pleasure. And I'm not sure that other associations and other school districts can say that, but Spring Hill USD230 can. And I certainly appreciate the board's willingness to let us do a 2-year contract. It's been, especially right now, it's been a blessing not to have to go to negotiations. But at the same time, I know that the association, there's a certain amount of security for those teachers to know that this is what I'm going to get paid next year and moving forward. So it's one of those times in life, I believe it's a win-win situation. So thank you to the board for allowing us to do that.
Any other comments, questions?
I just wanted to share my appreciation to Dr. Brock, Dr. Jaldos, and their staff, teachers, administration, everybody for getting this waiver together, continuous learning plan together. It's been, I'm sure, a daunting task. So I really appreciate you guys doing all the hard work for us. Sometimes I'm not sure that our students understand how beneficial this is or why they need to do it. But I think it's absolutely necessary that they keep learning, that they keep reading, math, all of the things that we need them to do. And I think it's something that we can learn from in the future. Hopefully we never have to do this again, but I think it's been something that we can use going forward. So thank you, everyone.
Stepping out of your comfort zone, I've got to believe. We're used to doing things a certain way, and something that you have no control over comes in and knocks you out of your comfort zone and says, "Hey, you can't think like that anymore," and it happens overnight. So to be able to be that resilient and that agile is truly remarkable. And the question that I have running around in my head is, what are we going to be able to use? What opportunity comes out of this? some of the, when you see all the links and the 3 different levels of work and the challenges, and then having live links that people can go to. When you think about these changes and edits to our process that's going on, how are we going to be? How is that going to improve our improve our outlook, or improve our process to be applied into the future? I think it's a stressful time. I know I know a lot of people probably aren't sleeping a whole lot. A lot of people are doing a lot of work. When you hear that there's 600 or so students that have individual education plans and each one has to be reviewed, that's a tremendous amount of work and a tremendous workload. And so it's critical that we, as we've made this giant leap forward, and how are we going to be, what exciting things are going to come out of this that we can apply to how we conduct business when things get, quote, back to normal. It's going to be interesting to see, but it's truly remarkable what the administration has pulled off here and pulled together in a very, very short period of time. You think of the time compression that's happened over this. I don't know what typical. I don't have a sense, I guess, of what continuous learning plans look like on a normal basis, but I got to believe there's some big differences between what we're talking about here and what we're implementing and what would be normal operations. So it is truly an amazing accomplishment to everyone. And to Eric's point, decisions were made probably before a lot of the folks that are on this current board that are now having a positive impact. And so we're fortunate to, really inherit good decisions from previous boards that we're now taking advantage of those. So excellent job. Well done. I know there's still a lot of work out there, but
I
totally agree. I think we'll finally see those teachers, administrators that were a little resistant to technology hopefully thrive in the new technology and doing videos and teaching with their cell phone cameras and whatever they have to get the learning across, get the teaching across the students. So hopefully that will be embraced going forward, and maybe we'll see something brand new next year that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, I think it's extraordinary how the district and the teachers, all of you, have literally pivoted on a dime over and over again, from one day saying we're coming back to April 6th to the governor making the announcement and changing immediately again. I mean, what our teachers are so extraordinary, and our administration. And I'm hoping that, above all, teacher appreciation comes out of this as well. I think if you lived under a rock for the last couple of weeks and you didn't know what was going on, and then you looked and saw all the plans that our district and teachers have put into this, no one would ever believe they planned it that fast. It's just really extraordinary. I'm very grateful.
Any other comments?
We appreciate the kind words. An incredible amount of people worked really hard to put that together. So thank you very much. And thank you to all those people. And just a reminder, we have a regular scheduled board meeting next Monday at 7 p.m. And we will be doing something very similar to this next Monday.
I will try to get the audio going before halfway through the meeting next time.
Well, again, agile and resilient. We have to all be patient with each other as we work through different ways of doing things. So very good.
Thanks. Call it a success, though.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. And thank you, Phil, for pulling all this together. Final agenda item is for adjournment.
This is Jason Winbolt. Move to adjourn.
Second. This is Allie.
Moved and second for adjourn.
I'll take a actual vote since we can't all see each other. Mr. Updike?
Right. Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell? Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mrs. Sealing?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Wimbolt?
Yes.
That's a wrap.
Very good. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Yep. Have a good evening.